All right, back with the one and only Brian Yam, supplements compliance expert. And so this is a follow-up video to the video we did a few months ago. What are the updated rules to the supplements compliance situation with selling on Amazon? So when we last did the video a few months ago, our understanding was every new supplement that comes on Amazon, it needs to be tested through one of these three third-party sites. It's Amazon saying, all right, guys, everything on our site needs to be tested. And then if you're existing on Amazon, we're going to prioritize a couple categories. But now it sounds like that's not quite the case. So, Brian, yeah, what have you been seeing? What's the update? What's new?
Yeah, so they're not wrong. So with regards to the new listings, not every product is going to be caught through this or goes through this testing program. I think there's an element of inconsistencies from the Amazon side. That's not a surprise, right? Considering how many supplements are listed, how many supplements they currently host, they do have to prioritize. I think when they initially launched, there were a lot of unknowns as we were going through the process. I remember a few days leading up to the official date of the announcement from Amazon, there were a lot of separate feeds from different people saying, hey, Amazon's changing the requirements. Some are giving hints as to what those changes were. Some are giving other hints as to what other changes were. But then Amazon had their official webinar. There were still a lot of questions that remained. And I think that was one of them. Now, through that, I mean, you're talking through people in the network and other experts within the network, and they're like, yeah, this applies to all listings. Now, in terms of rollout since then, we are seeing that that's not always the case. And the big thing is that they are prioritizing to sports nutrition, sexual health, weight loss, and then I believe they've added now this joint health product category. That said, doesn't mean your product won't get caught into this program. It's just saying that's what they're prioritizing. They could flip the switch at any point. They've been very clear about that as well. And that, yeah, even though we're not going after the prenatal world today, just know that you should be ready for that whenever that does happen. Of course, they'll give us the notification. Let's just be real. Like, there's just so many supplements. Of course, you're gonna have to prioritize. But I think they're giving us the signal, get the foundation right now, so that when we do flip the switch, you're ready to go. You don't have to like chase down your manufacturer or reformulate or anything of that nature. But yeah, that's the welcome to the world of supplements. And guess what? I'm pretty sure Amazon's going to change something a year from now or 2 years from now. And it's not the first time. I remember when they did, I think a couple of years ago, they said all supplements need to be tested with an ISO accredited lab. And a lot of these manufacturers don't use ISO accredited labs back then. They had in-house labs that were inside the manufacturing facilities, and they're totally fine. But then everyone had to switch over to these outside third-party labs, created a huge backlog. Everyone pushed back, and Amazon changed their policy and said, hey, sorry guys, we're going to allow in-house labs as well as ISO accredited third-party labs. And kind of, it's just the way it is. It's just the nature of the game. And stay tuned, watch Riley's channel, watch my channel if you can, and get the latest news. But yeah, we're just kind of getting the feelers out, seeing how things are going. It seems to be the natural course of progression here.
Yeah, I see what's going on. Amazon said they basically made it known, hey, going into the future, everything is going to need to be tested by the highest standards, e.g. Eurofins, NSF, or UL. And they were like, everyone, you got to do this. They made that announcement, and then to send the message, if you want to be on our platform, what's in the bottle needs to be what's in the bottle. Like, we're very serious about this. But now with some of our supplements clients, like they send their product in and there's no notification to be tested. It's in the supplements category, and they're like, don't we need to be testing? I'm like, yeah, everything needs to be tested. And they're like, well, there's no notification to do it. And we're like, what's going on? And so we're like, okay, I guess there's no notification. You're not getting flagged for it. So who knows? But maybe those three labs are being over flooded, and they're like, okay, Amazon and them need to kind of pump the brakes, not everyone at once, but the message has been sent. One thing that brands can just do is just have it tested through one of those labs, like whenever you can, because if and when the notification comes, hey, provide your certification through one of these top three highest standard labs, you already have it ready, and maybe you can just upload it to your Seller Central because you already had that certification. So you're going to need it at some point is what I'm telling clients, but it may not automatically be triggered in Amazon, but you're going to need it at some point.
Yeah, and to your point regarding when to test, my advice typically for clients that are focusing on compliance as part of their brand, strategy, if you will, or part of their values, is to test earlier. You'd be surprised at how that initial testing at production, at first, or even prior to production, where it could reveal a lot of things. And that's because it's the first run. Things happen. This is the first time they're using your ingredients, your special combination of ingredients. Sometimes the lab methods need to be tweaked. So it's better to sort through that today and figure out all these issues versus 6 months from now when Amazon does flag it or find it. And now you've got all this inventory at the Amazon warehouse that you can't sell. So I say this to my clients, I'd rather you go test today while the inventory is with the manufacturer. It hasn't been released yet by the manufacturer per se, and they can troubleshoot all of this stuff. Some manufacturers, they use an in-house lab. We talked about that earlier. That's their typical protocol. It gives them the good margins, not saying that their labs are bad, but then you've got the Eurofins of the world. Sometimes the test methods between the two labs are different, which results in a different value or result. And so Eurofins might test the product and say, hey, the amount of the ingredient is actually really, really low. Whereas the in-house manufacturer lab says it's perfect, it's fine. So there's some sort of test method issue that could possibly be contributing to that. And I'd rather us, since we've got the time now to figure it out, we might as well. So I think there's an element of, look, we got to be ready, as you mentioned. And on top of that, you might as well test at a third party if you can afford it, to kind of troubleshoot a lot of these things. We've seen a lot of that happen already because a lot of clients are wanting to be Amazon ready. Again, like I said, they'd rather figure it out today than 6 months from now. And then the inventory can't be sold on Amazon. They got to return it. And it just gets a lot more messier.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And yeah, of course, I should have thought of that too. It's like, test it to make sure it actually is what it is, because if you test later, it's like, if it's wrong, you're fucked. all your inventory
Yes.
all your inventory is sitting there, and now you can't sell it because it failed the test. If you fail the test, you're fucked. So yeah, and so what I'm telling brands is like, yeah, just if you can, go test through Eurofins, NSF, or UL if you can afford it. And that was actually my next question. What are the costs? People ask me, hey, what are the cost ranges? What's this going to cost me, Riley? I have to test this via Eurofins. Let's just say with Eurofins, what's the cost? How does it look like?
Sure. So there's going to be some variability. We'll talk about the variability later. The first thing is that there's some base level testing that they're most likely going to do. So the base level testing is around safety. So your contaminant testing, your microbials, your heavy metals, maybe some other chemical contaminants that they have to test for. And typically that cost will range between $1,500 to $2,000, just baseline testing. All right, from a
1,500 to
safety
2,000.
standpoint. Yeah, roughly. And again, this is a rough ballpark. I mean, some formulas have 20 ingredients in there, some have 10, some have 5. There's that. Some are botanical, some are multivitamins.
More ingredients, the more it's going to cost. Yeah.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, to a certain degree, it could, but we'll get there. But I'm just saying the nature, the inherent types of, for example, sorry, I'm going all over the place. Botanicals, there's more likely to have adulterants, chemical contaminants, microbial contaminants than say a highly processed vitamin C. And so there's variability inherent there in the type of testing, all right, and the limits apply. But roughly, let's just say base level safety testing, contaminant testing, you're around that $1,500 to $2,000, rough. Okay. Then the variability then comes into the ingredient quantity amounts, and this is typically what the consumers think about when they talk about testing. Is like, is the amount that's declared on the label actually what I'm getting in the product, or the actual ingredient that's declared on the label, is that what I'm actually getting in the product? And usually that's the ingredient label claim verification testing. So for example, if you say that I have got guarana in my product, 500 milligrams, they're going to test for that. Is there actually 500 milligrams of guarana in the product? That type of testing, what some people call potency testing, that can be very expensive per ingredient. I say to my clients, roughly it's around that budget between $300 to $500 per ingredient for that testing. All right. And that gives you the math. So if you've got, a 3 active ingredient product, let's say $500 a pop, that's $1,500 plus the $1,500, so that you're at three grand. All right, roughly. Regardless, the labs are going to quote you and tell you exactly what the costs are going to be, but that gives you an idea, a ballpark figure. And then some ingredients can't be tested from this ingredient quantity amount. Sometimes you just cannot do it. Some botanicals, there isn't an established test method. The labs don't have a standard. The labs don't have a test method. So they're not going to pitch you on that. They're going to sell you on that. So some supplements, and maybe some of your viewers are like, well, Brian said this, but they didn't actually test it. They only tested for the safety stuff. Sometimes the ingredients just aren't testable. So they're not going to charge you for that. And they'll just say, you know what, we're only going to do, because your product has all these botanical ingredients that we can't test, we're only going to test on the safety. So your ingredient might have 15 botanical ingredients, but they can only test on safety. Your bill is only $1,500. So hopefully that gives you an idea. I'll throw in one more variable, and that is the athletic greens out there. You know, you've got 50 ingredients. The ULs or NSF or Eurofins, they're not going to test all 50. They've kind of bucketed it down. They kind of said, we're going to test the first 5 ingredients. So if you've got 30 ingredients, we're going to definitely test 5 for sure. And then after that, 1 for every 5 ingredients. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's kind of how they bucket it down, so that it's a little bit more manageable for you. But we're going to
pick a random 5 of the other remaining.
Yes, and when they say random, it's not going to be completely random. It's going to be, well, which ingredients do they think are likely contributing to the value proposition of your product? Which ingredient is known to have contamination or adulteration? Like, being in this business for a long time, you get a sense of which ingredients are more vulnerable than others for adulteration or for safety issues, or that are known for certain claims. And so that's the ones that you'd be focusing in on. And that's how they would do that. And they would just charge you accordingly.
Okay, got it. Let's assume they're doing the right thing. They're testing beforehand, before they go to mass production, to make sure everything's sound. And then Eurofins is going to give you, okay, boom, you passed the test. This is exactly what's on the label, is that what's in there. Boom, you're good. And then we're assuming that when you list on Amazon, you get the notification, hey, give us the certification. You're just going to be able to give Amazon, hey, yep, Eurofins said we already passed, and should be good.
Yep, pretty much. So, I mean, as far as I'm seeing, so I'm the compliance guy. So I'm seeing things only from the compliance lens. I don't know what other administrative steps are in the Amazon platform, but yeah, for the most part, you're good to go. You pass the testing, you pass the certification review. The labs are going to notify Amazon. They'll just flip the switch in the system internally, and you'll be notified of that. Like, you're good, you're past the program, you are good to list. And then they're going to do this testing annually. So just because you passed today, just know next year they're coming back. All right. And so
you're going to get a notification in your Seller Central that says, please submit your new testing document.
Yeah. So if you've changed your formula, maybe you changed your ingredients in that year because you want to save on costs, or you got pissed off at your manufacturer, just know things can bubble up again. Just because you passed first time doesn't necessarily mean you might pass the second time. Those things happen as well.
Makes sense. It needs to be done. Amazon needs to make sure what's in the bottle is what the customer's getting. Yeah, that's huge thing for Amazon to maintain the trust of their customer base as the world's biggest store and biggest supplement store. So yeah, you should test before you do mass production, ideally anyways, right? Because then if you fail the test, then you're not fucked on your inventory. And then if and when Amazon's you get the notification from Amazon, hey, please submit your testing results, you already have it ready, either through USF, NSF, UL, NSF. Or Eurofins. And NSF, yeah, I'm assuming it's going to need to be through one of those 3 still.
Correct. It still is. Yeah. That hasn't changed. As far as I'm aware, I was at a guest speaking event. I had the opportunity to talk about Amazon and all that, and put it out there like, hey, Amazon, can you please approve more labs? I think having more options for the sellers would be very welcome. There are a ton of great labs out there in the industry. It doesn't have to be these 3. I understand the brand reputation and the history behind each of these and why they've chosen them. But there's also a lot of good labs that we could also add to that arsenal, and we might as well make it add less friction, right? Make less friction for the typical seller. I'm sure they would appreciate that. If you don't mind, I just wanted to touch on this whole testing, like testing prior to production or prior to release or at production. One thing that I talk about, it's not just testing, it's about setting the expectation of what to test for. So in the manufacturing space, they've got this document called the product specifications. A lot of times the sales reps at these manufacturers don't even know what this document is. You'll ask them for the specs, the sales reps to look at you with a blank stare, like they don't even know. But within the GMP world, their quality department will know what a specification is. Essentially, it's just a document that says your capsule is supposed to look like this. Your dimensions of the capsules are supposed to be this. Your weights for the capsules are supposed to be this number. And then on top of it, here's what we're testing for: heavy metals, microbials. Here are the specific heavy metals. Here are the specific microbials. Here are the limits, the pass-fail numbers you got to hit in order to release your product. A lot of the times, the manufacturers don't even bring this up to your clients, your customers. Think of it like this: like if you want to go to buy a burger at McDonald's, I don't ask for, well, what quality checks did you put for the Big Mac? I just want the Big Mac, right? That's how we do it, and then we pay the money, we get the Big Mac. But in the supplement world, you kind of got to ask, how exactly did you pass that? Why did you choose that piece of lettuce? How well did you cook that burger? And you got to get to the specifics. And that's kind of the same thing with supplements. You got to ask for that testing document, that specification, and then negotiate the terms. And usually when I do that with my clients, now we're putting in the Amazon requirements, maybe these other distributor platform requirements, maybe other state requirements into this testing specification, so that the manufacturer and you are aligned as to what the true pass-fail criteria is. You can't just assume that they're going to do this, right? A lot of the times the manufacturers have very loose requirements. They don't even factor in Amazon requirements. They have their own set of requirements that they think is fine, and no one's ever tested them on it or pushed back. But now that Amazon's here, what we've seen over the last 6 months is, in some cases, it fails Amazon, and the customer's like pissed off at the manufacturer. Why did it fail? The manufacturer then says, well, you never told me to test or build or engineer our product to Amazon testing requirements. And there's this weird vibe that happens, and then they bring me in to help solve the whole situation. But my call out is, it's not enough to just say, test it. You kind of got to go one step upstream, which is, what are we testing to? And that's kind of where the technical jargon comes in. And that's where we kind of bring value to our customers, because obviously a lot of entrepreneurs like, I don't know what that QA person just said. Brian, can you translate, or can you just help us out with that? And that's kind of where we step in. But that's something to think about. Don't assume that the specifications are done right out of the gate. Sometimes they don't do it to Amazon. That's very common, because they've been doing it their way, and their way over the last 20 years has been quote unquote fine. And so that's what they do. It's built into their program. And maybe they're running it for these bigger brands, the Athletic Greens. Maybe you've seen them on the line. Oh, they're doing life extension. They're doing BPN products, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, they've got great leverage. They can negotiate better terms. They can negotiate better testing. They're doing it for them. They're not doing it for the small startup brands, unless you tell them to. You know what I mean? That's kind of been another thing to think about.
Okay, that totally makes sense. When you're in the product development phase / finding your manufacturer phase, let your manufacturer know, this is where we're going. We're going to Amazon. We are going to be testing through Eurofins, and it needs to pass this exact test. Okay, manufacturer, are we 1,000% on the same page in terms of testing? No cutting corners, no skimping us. It needs to be exact. Okay, we good, Mr. Manufacturer? All right, I'm trusting you. All right, let's do actually a test order. Okay, we're gonna get it, sample, then I'm gonna go test it at Eurofins, and it better freaking test. Okay, just passed to Eurofins, great. All right, good job, guys. High five. Let's make 5,000 units.
I love your approach. It's like the most commonsensical, like almost obvious approach. You're absolutely right. That's how it should be. I'm gonna be that guy. Unfortunately, it doesn't roll out that way. Like I said, sometimes you get sales execs that they'll say yes to you, but they don't relay that over to the QA department.
Yeah, it might be the sales rep just trying to get the deal. And then they're like, yeah, I'm just doing my job, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not poo-pooing the sales people. Sometimes it's just within the operational department, the way the community, it's a game of telephone. Sometimes things get lost. And that's kind of where that trust but verify, I talk about that a lot on my channel. You got to go in, and you can't just order the Big Mac. You got to go in and say, did you cook it to this temperature? Did you actually put the tomatoes in there? You kind of got to get in there and get nitty gritty and messy a little bit more than we think we should. But you're absolutely right. I think that's a good starting approach. Set the tone. And then if you need to bring someone like myself in, or some third party to say, let's check in on them, they're not surprised. They're not offended, because Riley was very explicit. We needed to pass Amazon. We needed to do Eurofins testing. And now he's got his friend Brian coming in to check our documents, our books, and have discussions with our QA department. Everything makes sense. Usually where the relationship issues happen is like if you didn't go in as the leader of the company, of your brand, and set that expectation, and then Brian comes in and says, where's this? Where's this? Where's it? That's where things get a little bit,
right.
They feel blindsided. They feel offended. And they're like, hey, Riley, we didn't ask for this. Where did this come from? And you know what I mean? That's where the miscommunication
what do you mean?
happens.
They didn't tell me that they were going to Amazon. They just wanted to order some supplements. We got them. You want to buy them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the game plan is have a Brian, have a chat with Brian before, during product development and manufacturing phase. Talk with a compliance expert. Like, just like if you were going to build a house, you're going to probably want to talk to a foundation expert or a land surveying expert before you go and build the house on that piece of land, right? Okay, cool. I think people get it now. On that note, tell people, what is your main service? Like, what do you do for companies? Do you have different services? Tell people about what you do and offer.
Sure. So there's two big buckets, if you will. I think for the startups, if you're a brand new entrepreneur, we kind of play that role, like that example of, hey, before you build that house, you might want to talk to a contractor. You might want to understand what are the city bylaws, the state, laws, and then of course the federal side. So similar to that, we go in and kind of lay the foundation of what are the rules from FDA, what are the rules from FTC, and that's going to help you engineer your formula. You've got an R&D guy. I'm sure the manufacturers have an R&D guy. They're looking at taste. They're looking at the beneficial health benefits for the customer that you can brag about. We're going in. We want to make sure that that's truthful, that's substantiated, so that to FDA's bar. So we're kind of helping at that level, kind of giving you the lay of the land, also giving you guidance on proper formulation compliance, like from a compliance lens, not necessarily from a product feature lens, if you will, or consumer facing feature lens, and then help you with manufacturer selection, have these discussions with specifications, with the establishing the contracts, all that fun stuff. And then of course your marketing claims. So that's kind of like where we help with the supplement startups. Then you've got this other bucket, which are maybe the clients that you have that are already established. They're doing millions of dollars in sales already. They've got a legitimate business, but now they want to protect it. They're getting this feeling like, hey, this compliance thing is becoming real. I've got a legitimate business that I want to protect now. At first it was a good side hustle. Now this is a real thing. I need to make sure it can face scrutiny against FDA, competitors, Amazon. When I talk about competitors, people are tattletaling each other. See that a lot now. They're testing other brands' products. I don't know if you're familiar with Now Foods. That brand's pissed off at a lot of Amazon sellers because they know that a lot of these Amazon sellers aren't compliant. So they're testing those products and publishing those results. Anyway, the goal here is to protect these brands. So for those established brands, we become the remote QA department, and we'll manage their QA department across all their manufacturers, kind of set the standard across all manufacturers for them, move into new manufacturers, all that fun stuff, handle complaints, but really build in and internalize their QA department for them, but remotely and at a cost-friendly basis as a result, versus hiring a full-time employee.
Helping them getting their ducks in a row and their T's crossed and their I's dotted. Yeah, makes sense. And at a reasonable cost, more than a full-time QA person, but it's also going to save you money, because if you fail for testing, then you're fucked. So it's an investment. Same thing with hiring an Amazon agency. If you don't know what you're doing, you could everything could be messed up. Okay, cool. This was good. Anything else?
I'm just thinking if there's been any new developments that we've been seeing over the last 6 months or so since April of this year when they launched this program. And for the most part, it's been pretty consistent with everything they've talked about, bearing in mind the listing, requirements upon listing. We are seeing some brands going through this troubleshooting period where their products did get tested and it failed. Then what do you do? And there's been some interesting discussions with the manufacturers. Amazon does have a corrective action, preventive action procedure that is formalized to go through that rigmarole. And then in some cases, some brands are realizing, oh, our product is so quote unquote broken. Let's not even bother. Let's let them kill the product off Amazon. Let's relaunch and do it right. We're seeing that as well. And, for these brands, they can afford to do that. And, they've got enough cash flow to absorb that hit. But some out there watching this right now might not want to do that. And so something to think about, and just kind of factoring compliance into the equation. A lot of people naturally don't think of that. They're thinking more of short lead times, get to launch fast, work with a good manufacturer that's FDA registered. That means nothing to me in my world. And they just want to get to market ASAP. But there are some costs tied to that, unfortunately, that we want to factor in.
Okay, cool. Got it. And then you also mentioned the marketing claims thing. So I'll ask you that about real quick, because people reach out to me and they'll, hey, can I say this? Like, is this cool on Amazon? Like, can I say this? Can I say this? And I know there's also there's the FDA side, stuff that you can't say. And then Amazon has obviously everything the FDA, but some additional terms? Do companies hire you for that, like to get their marketing message, straight and in line?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are reviewing the Amazon product pages. We'll help them build their copy. Like they're going to have a copywriter to kind of go in with their best foot forward, right? The ideal state. We go in there. It's kind of like me going in with a lawyer. Like they're just going to redline everything. We go in and we make our edits, and we also have suggestions. We're not going to just cross out everything. We are going to suggest what we would recommend. But yeah, we're looking at the Amazon world, FDA, FTC. And I think one aspect of that is just kind of like a previous point of there's this element of you've got to engineer, you got to make sure your product is built so that it can say these things too, not just what words, trigger words should we avoid. There's this element of, is there enough of the ingredient to actually get you the claim you want? And sometimes I'm working with brands, they bring me in much later. They maybe have been successful, but they've got like 10 milligrams of, I don't know, caffeine in there. And as if that's going to do anything. Like a cup of coffee is what, 100 milligrams? Like, so then they want to make all these caffeine related claims. And it's like, hey, are you saying anything that's disease related or drug related? No, but you don't have enough caffeine in your product. Like there's a formulation issue here. So there's that element. They kind of go hand in hand. But yeah, we can definitely support. And we do support people on claims. I think that's a big issue. And we just want to make sure that at minimum, your post doesn't get flagged. And that goes for ads, right? Google ads and Facebook ads. And there's now this increased enforcement at that level where they are looking at your landing pages. They are looking at the websites. And they may get wiser to your website and realize you've got a lot of issues, a lot of claims issues, and we're not going to let you do ads anymore. We've been seeing that outside. I know this is a little bit outside of Amazon, but it's just something to factor into the whole equation.
Yeah, it all goes hand in hand, because if FDA doesn't allow it, then it's obviously not allowed on Amazon. And then Amazon has its additional layer on top of certain terms that you can't say. And when people ask me what terms could I avoid, we've been dealing with this for years. It's very inconsistent. It's like the algorithm will scrape and scan random products and it'll flag you, but there's tons of other products that are using that word in their title, and clients are like, what the heck going on? I'm like, yeah, Amazon is BS. It's crazy. It's inconsistent. It's all of us versus Amazon. Amazon, it's a machine of its own. And they're probably updating a lot of their algorithms with AI scrapers, and probably the same thing with Google and Facebook. And as AI comes on, they're just going to know more and be able to know everything that you're saying everywhere. So I think people are getting the message. Make sure your ducks are in a row from the very beginning. Make sure you're not making any outlandish claims. Make sure you follow all the FDA compliance rules. And when you go on Amazon, make sure you know all the guidelines and terms and conditions. And you should probably get an expert to check all that stuff. Make sure you're good.
Yeah, and I could see some of the viewers watching like, hey, if I can't say what my competitors are saying, or if I can't say XYZ because of FDA or FTC requirements, like what the hell how am I going to market this? What am I going to say? And I think this goes to your initial point from our first video together, which is you have to have really good R&D. I think that there's this element of like that strong brainstorm. You got to have something very unique. And that's so important because we are kind of tied now with all this compliance stuff. I mean, if you nail that R&D component, something really unique there, or have a very unique narrative, I think that's going to be your value proposition. But that just shows how important that initial stage, the conceptual stage, is in the whole grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I agree. That's in any business, having a unique product is the key to success. On that note, do any supplements companies come to you to help with the R&D? Like, hey, we want to do something in mushrooms. Can you help us nail down the best formula based on what you think is best, and like doing market research and stuff?
Yeah, so they do. And but I want to qualify this properly. So we look at everything from a compliance perspective. What does FDA or the National Advertising Division, how do they look at your formula? And when it comes to product R&D, there's two parallel arms. One is, like I talked about, this taste, the product features, the marketing aspect of it. Like a car, right? You're thinking about the horsepower. You're thinking about the passenger rooms, all the creature comforts, the Apple AirPlay thing or whatever it is, right? The CarPlay. You're thinking those are all the cool features you can talk about. That's like one arm of R&D, and that's typically what most people think about. There are consultants that focus on the trendy ingredients and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we come in, we're kind of not the cooler guys. We're more the geekier ones, where we're looking at, okay, is this stuff safe? Is this ingredient even allowed? What are the amounts that we need? What does the scientific literature say? So those two things kind of have to happen in parallel. And then that netting out, where that nets out, that's your final formula. And so if it's a relatively simple, you're talking about capsules, I don't need to worry about taste and that type of stuff, or solubility. I don't have to worry about that stuff. So for those, yeah, we can handle that formula. We'll look at the scientific literature. We'll look at the clinical trials. We can formulate what the efficacious doses are and propose what claims are tied to that. Not a problem. But when it's a dosage form where, let's say it's a powder, flavoring does become really important. Solubility, how it dissolves in water, becomes really important. Maybe it's a probiotic, how it's shelf stable becomes important. That's where I would say to the client, you're going to need like an R&D person as well as compliance, and they kind of run hand in hand. But so we do offer that support. It just really comes down to your dosage form. And then sometimes we can do it all. And then sometimes it's like, no, we can do half of it. Yeah, the other half, you're going to need some support, and we'll kind of figure out where we kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah, perfect. I think we're actually perfectly meeting in the middle here, because I can help people with developing a USP and developing a great product. Okay. And then they come over here and then, okay, all right, this is going to be your guys' selling angle. You're going to be mushroom with this sprinkled in, and this is going to be your branding too. Because some people come to me like, we're branding experts too. Like, your branding is going to be Tiger Bloom, whatever. This is going to be your brand look and feel. Like, we do all that. And it goes hand in hand with developing what the actual product is and how it makes you feel. It's like mushroom blended with caffeine. I don't know. I'm just making this up. Okay, cool. This is going to be the idea for the product development and your USP, unique selling position. Okay, cool. Boop, hand over to Brian's side. Okay, now you're going to look at all the ingredients. Is it compliant? And go over to everything that we just said.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe I'll push back, and then you push back, and then we kind of figure out, okay, well, what do we net out? And that's just part of the exercise. It's just part of the development process. All the large CPG brands, I've sat in those meetings. I've been in that, worn that suit, and that's exactly the idea. You've got the branding team. They come up with the concept, and it goes through this vetting process, if you will, financially, compliance wise, operationally. Like, there's all these other factors that go into that R&D phase before you actually press go and lock the formula and move ahead.
Right. But the first part is the marketing side, which actually has to do with marketing research. So first you got to do your market research. What's out there, right? Then we're on like drawing board. Right? We got to start with the drawing board, guys. And some people are coming to me like, hey, we have this other e-commerce brand, or we have a supplements brand, and we want to start another supplements brand. Can you tell me an awesome product to sell, Riley? It's like, okay. Yeah, sure. I'll just give you a key to $1 million supplement. Here you go. We need to start at the whiteboard, guys. Okay, and I can help with that potentially, guys. I can potentially help with that. Help with the market research and the R&D on that side. You need a great product that's unique, and you need a great brand as well. You need to be $1 million brand. You can't just be an ugly brand, I would say. And then after you have your idea, then go to the Brian side of the R&D. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's exactly what at least my audience would be looking for as well. And this exercise is all on paper. I think a lot of, at least what I've come across, is a lot of these people are already talking to manufacturers, potentially putting deposits down. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this stuff, this brainstorm, your side of the market research, all of that stuff, the compliance, all of this stuff can be done before, real inventory or real money is spent, if you will, before commitments are really made. I think that's so important. And so that stage that you talked about, that market research and all of that stuff, the concept is so key. We come downstream after that, that's so important.
Yeah. As with any business, look at the landscape, what's uptrending, what's already out there. How can we look at the competitors, look at their negative reviews? How do we improve a product? I mean, I've been in the creating products space for 10 years on Amazon. And now it's just leaning into supplements for the past couple of years. But the same thing applies to any type of product. I don't care if it's whatever niche. Starts with market research. How can we create an awesome product that's different and unique? And that's really the key to making the millions. This is great. I think this is a good episode that we have right here.
Very good. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Just zooming by.
Cool. So yeah, tell people where to find you, contact you, or whatever if they're looking.
Sure. Yep. So, first of all, if you are new to compliance, maybe if you're thinking about starting a supplement brand, we do have our YouTube channel. It's called Mighty Startup. It's on YouTube at Mighty Startup. You can find a lot of content there. You just get a sense of what that world looks like. We try to build it so it's like entrepreneur friendly, consumer friendly, but compliance talk versus the technical jargon, if you will. You can work with us directly. My website is www. I'll throw that in there. The old school 90s or 2000s, right? blueoceanregulatory.com. And you can work with us directly through that. And we offer one-on-one consultations, training. We also do we actually integrate. We become your consultant or remote QA department, etc. So you can definitely reach out that way. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Brian Yam, on LinkedIn as well, and reach me that way. Message me that way, and I'll see you on that side.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think we're set for today, Brian. Until we'll do the next one in the near future.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me on.